Hello and welcome back to my humble show. I am your host for today and every other day, the Articulate Thinker. Hopefully. Here to bring you art articles and articulation straight from Articulation Station, so be sure to like, subscribe, and enjoy the ride. Don't forget to turn on those bell notifications while you're at it. And there you have it. If you like it, put a ring on it. Sharing is caring, all that other good stuff. Thanks for being here. Have no fear. I'm going to be talking about the Bidens today. I have some stuff pulled up from last week that I never did speak on, so I'm going to speak on it now. And I'm going to see if I can catch up and keep up with the latest news about the Impeachment Inquiry. That's right. Speaking of the Impeachment Inquiry, I was listening to the White House press briefing earlier today, as I often do. John Kirby was there. He took a couple questions on the matter, though he didn't have much to say about the matter. And Karine Jean-Pierre, even more so, did not seem to know much of anything about anything. Yeah. According to them, there is absolutely no evidence of corruption in terms of the Biden administration. Scam likely. Sometimes it seems to me that when someone so broadly, so blatantly, so blanketly dismisses potential evidence, well, that in and of itself is evidence of evidence. I mean, if there's so much to look at, not saying it's proof of anything, if there's so much to look at, and the response by the Biden administration is, oh, there's absolutely nothing to look at, nothing to see here, nothing, no reason to inquire, no reason to investigate, nothing, zilch, nada. It seems to me that they, deep down inside their disingenuous selves, know better. Because we know that when it came to Donald Trump, so much as a fart in the wind was cause for an impeachment. Yeah, straight into an impeachment. Forget it, inquiry. They're ready for impeachment. Anytime, any place. Let's go. And they went twice to impeach Donald Trump. But when it comes to Joe Biden, not so much. And I promise you I was not scratching my butt just now. I've got this blanket wrapped over my chair here, and the corners of it hang down to the floor and get caught up under the wheels of my chair, so I tuck them in behind the chair, and it looks like I'm scratching my butt or something right now. I assure you I did not just poop my pants either, unlike Joe Biden. Enough about me, though. Let's talk about Biden. Joe Biden, President Biden, Resident Biden himself. Here we go. Here is an article which I pulled up last week, published on August the 22nd from Trending Politics. More specifically, Kyle Becker. Newly released email suggests firing Ukrainian prosecutor was Joe Biden's idea. Wouldn't put it past him at all. Because once upon a time, he actually had ideas. Now he just has lies. Although I guess you have to have an idea in order to have a lie. That's neither here nor there. Also, I had a few more thoughts on the press briefing, the aforementioned press briefing, propaganda briefing. But I might save those for a little later. And yes, if I get through all of this, all of these tabs, I will, once I catch up and keep up, I'll cover some of the latest, not so greatest news about the inquiry. There is lingering uncertainty about the first impeachment of former President Donald Trump, whether or not he was justified inquiring about former Vice President Joe Biden's threat towards a Ukrainian prosecutor that appears to be gaining clarity. Newly revealed memos obtained by Just the News directly challenge the commonly held view that Joe Biden was acting in line with U.S. policy when he threatened to withhold a $1 billion U.S. loan guarantee to force the ouster of Ukraine's Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin in December 2015. Viktor Shokin has made some rounds lately on the various Fox News segments. I believe he spoke with Brian Kilmeade, for example. And he has essentially said, well, he has outright said that he was looking into Burisma. Maybe not at the immediate time, but overall, yes, and that's precisely why they wanted him gone, which is precisely why Joe Biden wanted him gone, because his son, Hunter Biden, worked there, and of course, he was essentially being paid by Burisma. He was outright being paid by Burisma to make any potential investigations go away. Go away. You know, like questions during a White House press briefing. Yeah, so that's why Karine Jean-Pierre talks about how there is no evidence at all. It's all baseless. Little bit too confident there. A little bit too cocky there. But yes, back to this article. At the time, Shokin's office was aggressively investigating Burisma Holdings, where Biden's son Hunter served as a board member. Further details about this investigation have been recently revealed. Burisma was pressing Hunter Biden to help neutralize Shokin, according to Devin Archer, a former Burisma board member and Hunter Biden's ex-business partner. He should know, right? Here's the thing. The congressional Democrats, such as Hakeem Jeffries, would have us believe that literally everyone is lying except Joe Biden. Which is a little bit of a stretch. A little bit hard to believe considering how just the other day when he was in Alaska speaking about 9/11, he lied about having been on the ground looking at Ground Zero, the scene of the crime, the Twin Towers, the day after 9/11. That's what Joe Biden claimed, even though it was completely false for him to claim that. In other words, he lied, just like he has lied time and time and time again, just like he lied during the 2020 presidential debates, just like he lied to the faces of the Gold Star family members, the parents of the soldiers who died during the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, courtesy of a rogue terrorist who escaped from Bagram Air Base, the prison there. Yeah, which our military, thanks to certain generals, and more specifically, thanks to the man with the plan himself, Joe Biden, or the man without the plan himself, Joe Biden. Yeah, it was all neglected and left to the terrorists to run wild and free and do their suicide bombings. But yes, that's another topic, and that in and of itself is worthy of an impeachment inquiry, I would say, in my humble opinion, and makes me very mad thinking about it. But that's a whole nother story. So back to this story, before I lose too much track of time, especially what time is it? Just pretend I have a watch on. Yeah. 3 main takeaways arise from reviewing the documents that directly contradict the narrative that Biden sought to replace Shokin because he was corrupt, such as senior U.S. officials had earlier praised Shokin's office, including John Kerry himself, through a letter. Burisma was trying to influence U.S. officials to dismiss the corruption allegations. A top U.S. official in Kyiv criticized Hunter Biden for undermining U.S. anti-corruption efforts in Ukraine. Don't forget that Barack Obama later on said that no one should underestimate Joe Biden's ability to F things up. Not saying that's all about this, but he may have had this in mind at the time. And it seems to me that this narrative that Viktor Shokin was just a corrupt prosecutor who needed to be gone because he wouldn't prosecute Burisma? He wouldn't investigate Burisma enough? Or something like that, some nonsense like that? It's a nonsensical notion. It seems like that narrative was spread after the clip made its rounds of Joe Biden talking about how he had pressured, via quid pro quo, the Ukrainian government to fire their top prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, who just so happened to be in charge of an ongoing investigation into Burisma, the company which Hunter Biden just so happened to work for, or shall I say with. Right. So give me another example of Joe Biden in all of his, 11-ish years in the White House, pressuring any other government in the world to fire a prosecutor. Speaking of prosecutors, if a prosecutor's failure to prosecute or investigate was cause for removal or resignation, what about David Weiss? Hasn't he been sitting on this Hunter Biden investigation for 5 freaking years? Okay. It seems to me that Viktor Shokin was doing no worse than someone such as David Weiss or many other prosecutors in this country who the Biden administration is absolutely fine with. Go to any large city where criminals are on the loose because of bail laws or whatever reason, inability for cops to do their job, whatever the case may be, in whatever place you see. I'm sure there is something there that the Biden administration could at least criticize, but they won't, as long as the cities are run by Democrats or something like that. But yes, it's all about the narrative. It's all about the Bidens. During President Trump's first impeachment, testimonies acknowledged that Hunter Biden's role in Burisma could be perceived as a conflict of interest but didn't fundamentally affect U.S. policy. Yet, the confidential emails shared with Just the News suggest that Hunter Biden did influence U.S. policy on corruption in Ukraine. Joe Biden's role in influencing influencing Ukraine President Petro Poroshenko to fire prosecutor Viktor Shokin has heretofore been unclear. Shokin was investigating Burisma, where Hunter Biden and Archer were being paid $83,333 a month. So if I didn't make my point already, I mean, I attempted to several times, but kind of went on little tangents. Viktor Shokin appears to have been doing his job, which the Biden administration had acknowledged, even John Kerry himself, up until the point when a new narrative needed to be spun because Joe Biden couldn't keep his big fat mouth shut. Chances are none of this would have come to fruition, the impeachment inquiry, that is, if not for Joe Biden himself bragging about his pressure campaign publicly. Biden had publicly recounted his ultimatum to Ukraine. I said, "You're not getting the billion. I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor is not fired, you're not getting the money," which was followed by Shokin's eventual dismissal. This led then President Trump to seek information from the Ukrainian president about what happened, which somehow led to his impeachment and acquittal. You know, some people say, what Joe Biden said, his pressuring was according to U.S. policy, Obama administration policy. Even if that's true, that would be a quid pro quo at the hands of Barack Obama, would it not? The very type of thing which the Democrats impeached Donald Trump for? Pressuring a foreign government? Although, in Ukraine's case, in Donald Trump's case, Volodymyr Zelensky said that he had not been pressured by Donald Trump at all. That's what he himself said. I guess the Democrats didn't trust him back then. Nowadays, they trust every word he says, which is why we keep sending them money, which is also neither here nor there. That's for another show. Got to keep this show moving. During the impeachment, the defense was not provided with documents that could have significantly affected the case, according to legal experts and politicians familiar with the matter. Some memos were eventually given to the Senate Homeland Security Committee in late 2020, but came too late to influence their investigations. How convenient. Similar to how so many of these investigative matters reach a prosecutorial conclusion after statutes of limitations have run out. In Hunter Biden's case, thanks to, you guessed it, David Weiss, who is now the special counsel of an investigation which he botched in the first place. Although I wouldn't really call it a botching. I would call it a kneecapping, if anything. But hey, he's so much more reliable than Victor Shokin, isn't he? As the report notes, Victoria Nuland, current Undersecretary of State, told investigators that concerns about Shokin dated back to the summer of 2015. These concerned his failure to prosecute former members of the deposed Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych's government. Contrary to previous narratives, Archer claimed that Shokin was indeed a threat to Burisma. Documents obtained also contradict this prevailing narrative, including that U.S. officials were sending mixed messages about Shokin's performance. For example, in 2015, in June of 2015, a letter was sent from Victoria Nuland on behalf of the Secretary of State John Kerry and commended Shokin's office on its corruption reforms. An IPC memo from September of 2015 further endorsed Ukraine's anti-corruption efforts and recommended the third loan guarantee. And as you can see in this screenshot, Dear Mr. Prosecutor General, Secretary Kerry asked me to reply on his behalf to your letter of May 13, 2015, discussing Ukraine's efforts to address corruption. Yada, 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 bing, bang, boom. We have been impressed with the ambitious reform and anti-corruption agenda of your government. High praise. So, what changed? Oh yeah, we already know that. We already know the answer to that. In the following weeks, officials from the state and justice departments carried on with the strategy they had outlined in their October memorandum. They even extended an invitation to the top-tier officials from Shokin's office to visit Washington in January 2016 for further talks. Upon their arrival in the U.S. Capitol, State Department memos reveal that news broke suggesting Biden had altered the U.S. stance as of December 2015. So it seems to me that there were different phases of loan guarantees. So at which point did it suddenly become necessary to throw in that little cherry on top, the firing of Victor Shokin? I guess when it became convenient for the Bidens. And if I'm not mistaken, Barack Obama himself has not had much to say about this in a long time, if anything at all. I mean, his name was evoked by Joe Biden himself in his braggadocious viral video where he was bragging about his dirty deeds. He said, call him. Call Barack Obama, President of the United States. That would suggest that Barack Obama was in charge of all of it. Well, why isn't he defending all of this? Of course, he's not in politics right now, or is he? Some people say he is actually running the White House right now. It's Obama's third term. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, but Joe Biden really isn't running anything, is he? Isn't really running anything. Where was I? Upon their arrival in the U.S. Capitol, State Department memos reveal that news broke suggesting Biden had altered the U.S. stance as of December 2015. The U.S. Embassy in Kiev learned of this development from Ukrainian media and informed the IPC task force, expressing once again how they were super impressed with Viktor Shokin's team. Another statement here. Prosecutor General's Office. Ukraine shall provide USAID a copy of the comprehensive regulation adopted by the Prosecutor General, which ensures the independent operations of the Office of Inspector General of the Prosecutor General's Office. Regulation shall clearly define the PGOIG's jurisdictional powers and authority to enable it to perform its functions in a manner that is effective and credible, and that increases the accountability of the PGO to the public. The regulations shall be endorsed by the U.S. Department of Justice. Blah, blah, blah. I'm running out of time, so don't mean to stop on a dime or tell too many rhymes, but I got to get through this quick, fast, and in a hurry before I scurry off back to work. According to Zerkalo Taisnaya news website, sorry if I botched that, the U.S. State Department has made it clear to the Ukrainian authorities that it links the provision of a $1 billion loan guarantee to Ukraine to the dismissal of Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin, noted the embassy in Kiev in communication with the IPC task force. Buckle in, Pyatt cryptically responded to the news on January 21, 2016. Eric Ciaramella, a CIA agent stationed at the Obama White House, specializing in Ukrainian matters and later known as the whistleblower in Trump's impeachment, seemed caught off guard by the news. Yikes. I don't recall this coming up in our meeting with them on Tuesday, although we did discuss the fact that the PGOIG condition has not yet been met. Ciaramella informed the task force. I've been meaning to write to you about our meeting. We were super impressed with the group, and we had a 2-hour discussion of their priorities and the obstacles they face. So more documents, more receipts here. Let me see how much more is here. Yikes, there is more to this than I thought. This is a very lengthy article. So sorry. A few days prior, the Obama administration had updated the prerequisites for the loan guarantee, indicating that they were still willing to proceed with it despite some unfulfilled obligations with Shokin's office. Here's nearly the latest CP document. We've made some minor tweaks since this version, very minor tweaks since this version, which I will dig up and send to you tomorrow, but wanted to get something to you tonight, Siegel Knowles told State Department's Rachel Goldbrunner on January 15. Interestingly, the attached file mirrored the November memorandum outlining conditions for Biden's conversation with Poroshenko. Surprisingly, it contained no stipulation calling for Shokin's ouster. Which is why I'm wondering, where exactly was this idea implemented? When exactly was this idea implemented? Oh yeah, when it was convenient for the Bidens. No documents furnished from Senator Johnson's thorough 2020 investigation have so far indicated any directive by the IPC task force to either hold back the $1 billion loan guarantee or call for Shokin's removal. Right, because you would think that if it was official U.S. policy, there would be more receipts for that, rather than receipts about how Viktor Shokin was doing a good job. The threat to fire the prosecutor thus appears to have been an out-of-the-blue initiative from Joe Biden before he flew to Ukraine. And keep in mind that Hunter Biden was flying all around the world with Joe Biden, and they were never transparent about how many times they flew together. They weren't. Jesse Waters has done some recent reporting on this in regards to the number of times that they were seen together traveling. So yes, Hunter Biden was literally taken by his dad to foreign countries where he did business. He did his business. And yet we're supposed to believe that they never once talked about any of it. Despite all of the conversations over phone, during business meetings, with business partners, despite the whining and dining, despite the banks, the shell companies, the cars, the collectibles, the photos from golf trips with business partners. Once again, I'll reiterate, business partners. We're supposed to believe that they never once talked about anything except for, I guess, the weather? A resurfaced photograph taken on Air Force Two on December 6, 2015 shows the former vice president alongside an advisor closely connected to his troubled son, Hunter, and Ukrainian gas company, Burisma. There you go. The photo was taken shortly before Joe Biden arrived in Ukraine at a meeting with the president and threatened to withhold $1 billion in U.S. aid if they did not fire their top prosecutor, Victor Shokin. Amos Hochstein, now a special presidential coordinator for President Biden, is pictured in the photo below. He allegedly had interactions with Hunter and his contacts at Ukraine's Burisma Holdings when Biden's son was on board. So it says the photo below, but I think it's talking about the photo above. That would make the most sense. Yeah. The photo shows that Joe Biden was discussing issues with a Hunter Biden ally who was being kept abreast of Burisma's issues days before he issued an ultimatum to former Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko to fire the top prosecutor or risk losing the $1 billion in U.S. aid. Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik provided a reaction to the photo to Fox News Digital. There is a link to that. I'm not going to react to that reaction, but here is the article. Has a photo of everyone except for Elise Stefanik, so it seems. But that's also a lengthy article, an even lengthier article than the one I'm involved in reading right now. But she said, this damning picture of then Vice President Joe Biden on Air Force Two en route to Ukraine talking with Amos Hochstein is just further evidence that Biden and senior officials in the Biden administration not only knew of Hunter Biden's corrupt foreign business dealings, but also that Joe Biden was intimately involved, while Vice President Stefanik said. While Vice President Stefanik said. Put the wrong emphasis there. Yeah. Too many links. Going to be some missing links here because I don't have time to cover everything I want to cover. For example, the pseudonym email accounts, which belong to Joe Biden. Congress is having some difficulty getting their hands on unredacted versions of that information because the White House is stepping in and trying to block some things. A little bit of obstruction going on. All evidence points directly to Joe Biden being deeply compromised. House Republicans will leave no stone unturned in our investigations into Biden's involvement in his family's influence peddling scheme, Stefanik added. And by the way, I skipped a little stanza. Go ahead and read it. At the time of this photo, Hochstein was in communication with Hunter Biden in Burisma, where Hunter served on the board, she continued. We also know that this photo was taken on Air Force Two ahead of Joe Biden's now infamous meeting with Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko, where Biden threatened to have aid withheld if a Ukrainian prosecutor investigating Burisma was not fired. I might have read that twice, but either way, it's important. A Senate Republican report from December 2020 on Hunter Biden's business activities indicate that in October 2015, Hochstein expressed concerns that Hunter's role on the Burisma board might jeopardize U.S. policy in Ukraine. But there's nothing to see, nothing to hear, no evidence whatsoever. And the Democrats will defend Joe Biden until their dying breath, or until his dying breath, since that's probably somewhere right around the corner. Not that I'm hoping for it. A Senate Republican report from December 2020 on Hunter Biden's business activities indicates yada yada yada, bing bing boom, already read that. In the 2020 report, Hochstein testified that he discussed Burisma with Biden in the White House's West Wing in October 2015. Visitors' records show he made 3 visits to the White House that month, with 2 taking place in the West Wing and 1 on its 2nd floor. Did he also bring cocaine into the White House? You know, the cocaine, which apparently has no owner. When Hochstein testified before Congress, he declined on advice of counsel to testify about the substance of his cocaine. I mean, conversations with Vice President Biden. And no, I'm not tying cocaine into this. I'm just, being humorous, or at least attempting to do so, since the Biden administration is such a laughingstock. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer recently obtained from the National Archives records without redactions showing Biden's communication with Hunter and business partners Eric Schwerin and Devin Archer using 3 pseudonyms: Robert L. Peters, Robin Ware, and J.R.B. Ware. And those are those pseudonyms, aforementioned pseudonym. Yeah, basically that. But there's much more to get to the bottom of, because there were thousands of emails, and many of which had Hunter Biden's name listed as a recipient. But yeah, talk to the National Archives, I guess. Between 2014 and 2016, then Vice President Biden, using these aliases, kept Hunter informed about discussions with Ukrainian leaders, including then President Petro Poroshenko and Prime Minister Vladimir Groisman. House Oversight Chair Comer remarked on the findings to Fox News' journalist Maria Bartiromo. This was 100% government business, Comer also said. Again, the Democrats in the White House have claimed that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden had a firewall between their business affairs. As you know, are no legitimate businesses here. Okay, that's a weird sentence. Again, the Democrats in the White House have claimed that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden had a firewall between their business affairs. As you know, are no legitimate businesses here. Yeah, oh, okay, I see what he's saying. The Biden family were receiving payments from bad people in bad countries around the world. And what we've been trying to do is figure out why. Why in the world would the Biden family receive over $20 million from foreign nationals around the world? And this is evidence to show that Joe Biden was communicating with his son, quite literally. He was making sure that his son knew he was on his way to Ukraine. Remember, the timeline of these emails show that Joe Biden was en route to Washington, or from Washington to Ukraine, for the sole purpose of withholding aid to Ukraine in exchange for firing the prosecutor, he went on. And we know that happened. And we know Joe Biden accepted credit for it. Precisely why he was bragging about it. He did an interview where he said, "Well, son of a bee, they fired the prosecutor before I got on the plane and left Ukraine." Joe Biden, in his own words, said that, "So now we have evidence that Joe Biden and his administration was communicating with Hunter Biden," he noted. They knew Hunter Biden was affiliated with Ukraine. That's another lie. Joe Biden said he didn't even know Hunter was on the Burisma board for a long time. That is another lie. They were copying Hunter, and the only emails we've seen where they were copying Hunter were pertaining to Ukraine at a critical time when Joe Biden was going there to fire the prosecutor in exchange for foreign aid. That's called a quid pro quo. And that's very illegal, and it's more evidence that Joe Biden was front and center in this influence peddling scheme. That's not even to mention their connections to China and all these other countries that they had connections to. Or, a certain someone in Moscow. What about Iran? Now we have this latest prisoner swap with Iran, which is turning out to be quite controversial. Iran, I should say. The saga detailing Joe Biden's sudden policy shift in late November 2015, affecting both the U.S. Vice President's office and Hunter Biden's ties with Burisma, was promised to readers by the news outlet that surfaced these reports. Promises. We'll see what happens. We'll see what becomes of all of this. I'm 34 minutes into the show, and I got to go here in a moment, but I had so much more I wanted to cover, but I spent all of my time on that one article. I guess that's because it was a darn good article, right? Just going to click through some tabs really quickly. Click around and find out. Apparently my tabs are all out of order. Barack Obama reportedly skeptical of Joe Biden's 2020 White House run. This has that quote I mentioned earlier. Don't underestimate Joe's ability to F things up, the former president told an unnamed Democrat who told Politico about the conversation, reportedly reflective of a strained history between the two. Yeah, they pretend to be pals, but they're really not. They're two completely different people that kind of got in each other's way. As presidents and vice presidents sometimes do. And I could go ahead and exit out of that. I'll leave it pull up. Biden's use of fake names in email could cost him. This is an article from The Hill, but it's not the hill I'm going to die on right now. Because once again, I'm out of time. But yes, by Jonathan Turley. I always enjoy hearing what he has to say, so I'll leave this article pulled up. My goodness. This is the face you're making right now, isn't it? Look at that face. I can't enlarge that face. Oh well, you can see it on the screen. That's the face you're making. No, that's the face I'm making every time the Biden administration claims that there's absolutely no evidence of anything. Anything at all. According to a new CNN poll, 55% of Americans believe that Joe Biden is acting inappropriately in protecting his son, Hunter Biden. Does this mean that 45% find it appropriate? Yeah. Glass is half empty and also half full. More than one way to look at that. It's about time that people caught on to all of this, but at the same time, a large percentage of people still haven't. They would be willing to vote for Joe Biden. Of course, some people don't even like him, but would be willing to vote for him over Donald Trump. So there's that factor.
And when you look here about President Biden now serving as president, his actions in the Hunter Biden probe, have they been appropriate or not? 55% of Americans, a majority, believe Biden's actions related to the Hunter Biden probe.
So despite this, however you want to interpret it, it's telling. And yet, Karine Jean-Pierre is on air talking about how there's absolutely no evidence. It's all baseless. Political attacks, they should know. They're all about that business.
Inappropriate. 24% of Democrats, again, a majority of independents, 52%, and nearly all Republicans at 90% believe that. And this is to show what happens when you don't push back at all, which is really basically what the White House has been doing. There's not been a Hunter Biden defense kind of mounted in a public relations way.
That's because if they push back too hard, their entire narrative collapses as it already is. Collapsed a long time ago for me, but as you can see, still a portion, even if not a majority of the population, still feels that Joe Biden did nothing wrong. But yeah, that was a poll from CNN. CNN, there's question about whether there are other potential crimes that are now back on the table for Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden now has a host of problems that he didn't think he had a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, that's connected to the case against Hunter Biden. Washington Post reporter Philip Bump embarrasses himself defending Joe Biden's corruption. Let me go ahead and play this clip right here.
What do you take from the text message to his adult daughter, Hunter's text message, that I have to give 50% of my income to Pop?
I have no idea what that means. I have no idea what that means.
Well,
I know it's circumstantial evidence, and you prefer that.
No, what could it mean?
I have no idea.
But
I don't know.
Well,
I appreciate your.
Has anybody asked her?
I don't know. I don't know.
Don't you think somebody should ask her?
Okay. Like I'm not. I just said I don't know, and I don't know what to make of it, so I have nothing else to say about it.
Yeah,
what do you want me to say?
Yeah, but you say there's no evidence, but then there's a text message where he says, "I give Pop 50% of my money." That's evidence.
Okay, well, okay, fine.
So
It's evidence. I appreciate you having me on.
it doesn't. Something like that. Who do you think is being more? I listen to that and I'm saying,
Am
okay,
I?
okay, you can free to go.
I feel you want me to leave, like just walk out in the middle of this, because that way you can
you can go.
All right.
Is this a standard? Really, this is the way the Washington Post handles people who disagree with
when
them.
I agree to be on for 45 minutes,
go,
and then
go.
I get on for an hour and 15. Yeah,
Go,
then after a while
go,
I go.
go.
Thanks for having me.
I won't be too hard on him because he had been there a long time, talking about a lot of things. But yeah, on the specific point of that specific text group chat by Hunter Biden about how he was giving half of his income to his dad. Well, Philip Bump is like, I don't know. I have no idea what it means. I have no idea. It's whatever. Sounds just like a White House press briefing. Propaganda briefing. Sorry, I'm a little bit scatterbrained right now. Tongue-twisted scatterbrained. James Comer has the receipts. There are emails that went back and forth where Hunter's legal team was telling Joe Biden how to spin the narrative about the corruption he got caught in. Also heard just recently that Joe Biden had, before all of these Trump indictments, been requesting the Justice Department to ramp up the speed at which they were going to go after him, which they ultimately did. Now that there are 4 indictments on Donald Trump, I think it was the New York Times who reported on this, said that Joe Biden was telling people to go after his political opponent, telling people within the Justice Department even. But I can't necessarily verify that. Can't verify a lot of things, but there is a lot of evidence, enough to suggest that there is proof somewhere. And wherever that proof is, it seems to be somewhere in the realms of corruption, maybe even criminality. If it's true, as the FBI informant file has said, that Joe Biden accepted a $5 million bribe along with his son in order to pressure the Ukrainian government to fire the prosecutor who was and still is Viktor Shokin. That's someone who needs to testify in front of Congress. But I've got to go. I've got to go get this show on the road right now. Actually, I'm late for work. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Keep in touch. Keep in tune. New content is coming soon. Feel free to disagree with me on anything I said. Let me know in the comments below what you think, what you know. Gotta go. Peace. Oh, wait a second. That's one finger. There we go. There's the second one. Peace. Deuces. Frozen. Okay, my stop key did not function properly. Let me try this again.